off. Raise your voice and shout, we're breaking down the walls. We're breaking free, yeah, we're breaking free. No more oppression, it's out for liberty. Breaking free, yeah, we're taking a stand. Freedom's in our hearts, we're reclaiming our land. They try to silence us, but we won't be tamed. Voices getting louder, can't keep us in chains. We got the power, we got the might. Together we can shine, together we can fight. Feel the rhythm in your feet, it's time to stand tall. Raise your voice and shout, we're breaking down the walls. We're breaking free, yeah, we're breaking free. No more oppression, it's out for liberty. Breaking free, yeah, we're taking a stand. Freedom's in our hearts, we're reclaiming our land. They try to silence us, but we won't be tamed. Voices getting louder, can't keep us in chains. We got the power, we got the might. Together we can shine, together we can fight. Feel the rhythm in your feet, it's time to stand tall. Raise your voice and shout, we're breaking down the walls. We're breaking free, yeah, we're breaking free. No more oppression, it's out for liberty. Breaking free, yeah, we're taking a stand. Freedom's in our hearts, we're reclaiming our land. We're claiming our land.
I hate this show. Oh my goodness.
Oh God, I hope Casey's in the chat because I forgot to hit the play video button. We had like 20 seconds of dead air. So minus 100 points to me already. Welcome everybody to Are You Smarter Than a Politician? This is the political cage match where bold solutions win and bad ideas get wrecked. Tonight, is America still a republic or are we financing an empire? We're taking on war powers in Iran, preemptive strikes and global dominance, and tying it straight to inflation, the national debt, and the Federal Reserve. We're testing borders, guns, surveillance, decentralization, and the limits of federal power. Three notable political minds who care deeply about these issues step into the ring. The question tonight is empire or republic? Let's find out who is smarter than a politician. Joining us tonight, Jacob Winograd. He is the host of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. You can find it on all the channels, YouTube and X. He is also with the Libertarian Christian Institute, which is libertarianchristians.com, where I am a donor. And on X, he is at Biblical Anarchy. How are you tonight, Jacob?
Well, I'm muted for start, but I am fantastic. I'm so excited to be here for my third time, hoping to bring home my first victory. So hope all of you are in the chat ready to help me achieve this. But of course, I'm with some great guests, so it's going to be, I think, a very good-spirited competition.
Plug your stuff, please.
Of course, like you said, I'm the host of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. You've been on it. Derek's been on it as well. I've not had Dan yet. I'll have to reach out and rectify that. But I explore the intersection between the Bible, between the Christian faith, and libertarian economics, political philosophy. And then, of course, I also am on staff for the Libertarian Christian Institute and help us with our social media and all the other shows we have at the Institute on our Christians for Liberty network. So definitely check all that out, biblicalanarchypodcast.com and libertarianchristians.com.
Yeah, it's a great show. You guys had Larry Sharp on. Was that last night? It was a really good one. So
that was last night.
Yeah, must see TV right there.
Larry's
also joining
awesome.
us back again, Derek Wills. He's the author of The Liberty Solution, and soon he'll be releasing Chaos in Auburn. He's also a writer with our friends at LP Alliance, their Torch Media website, and you can find him on X at ANCAP Air. How are you tonight, Derek?
Any better, it would be a felony. And actually, it might be a felony. I don't know. We have so many fucking laws that I have already cursed. I should just take me to jail now. But I'm super glad to be here, man. I appreciate the invite. Also my third time. But I'm just here to have fun. So win, lose, or draw, that's all I'm here for. And I know it's going to happen. So.
And plug all your stuff, please.
Yeah. Well, again, you can find me on X. That's where I spend most of my time. Also writing on the Torch Media, and I'm also working on my second book, which I've been slacking on, sadly, but I'm gonna push through and finish that. So
Awesome. And I always like to point out when you're on what a huge fan I am of yours, and your writing is what inspired me to get louder and bolder. And I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm very thankful every day I don't see you banned from social media. And but appreciate you, brother. Thanks for doing this.
anytime.
Last but
Thank
not
you.
least, Dan Behrman. He is the author of Crash the Fed. That's the new book. And also Taxation is Theft, How Politicians Rob You Blind. His website is danforfreedom.com. On X, you can find him at Dan for Texas. How are you tonight, Dan?
I'm doing pretty awesome. I think I just committed my felonies already for the day, so I'm par for the course.
Nobody left any good felonies for the show? I'm offended. I'm really offended.
I mean, there's always extra credit.
There you go.
It's not bedtime yet.
Plug all your stuff and all the cool work you're doing.
Plug my what? So I have a couple of books. Of course, you just mentioned these. That's what I do. I spread propaganda and try to get people to stop paying taxes, because taxes are evil. Taxes pay for bombs and war and all kinds of other nonsense. And it's extortion, it's immoral, and everything else. And what's fascinating about the government is they're pretty retarded when it comes to enforcing taxes. So there's actually all kinds of cool ways to get out of not just like taxes, but like, parking tickets and all that stuff. So stop paying taxes.
Excellent. Really good. Appreciate having you back on. And joining us as always, our producer, the lovely Terry Batts. How are you tonight, Terry?
I'm doing great. The chat's already getting into this, you guys. You got it going on. I love it. Let's have some fun, right?
Excellent. Speaking of the chat, let's jump into the chat and say hello to everybody. Bunch going on here. Dan's here. What's up, Dan? Shirley joining us from across the pond. Liberty Shamrockers here. Welcome. There's Rob Yates. He's running for LNC chair. What's up, Rob? Horty Sir's here. Anarchist Chef. What's up, buddy? Crumpy Gnome is here. He had a really good show last night, too. I was busy all night. He had a really good show with a candidate on. 3 shots in. Check that out. Amity's here. Welcome, Amity. First 200 points to Jacob because Christ is king. I think that's more Christ than Jacob, but I'll allow it. Chris is here. What's up, Chris? 100 to Jacob for trying to copy Free's hair in his PFP. Flattery is the best something or other. Yeah, that's fair. What's up, Casey? I hope Casey missed me pressing wrong buttons like right out of the gate. And check out Casey's show. They both suck. Semi-annually on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. 100 to Derek, commit felonies. 200 to Derek for committing a felony in the first 5 minutes. That might be a record. 200 Derek for trying to get free banned. Yeah, I do good enough on my own. YBF Randy's here. I never get invited. Well, reach out to us. 200 Dan for the coolest middle name ever. Taxation is theft. Mike Vitko's here. What's up, Mike? 100 to Derek for writing for the Torch. They publish my work as well, so we love them. They are awesome. Good friends of mine. Somebody was calling us, what were they calling us the other day? The Antifa caps or something like that, like, because we're you know who you are, nephew. All points go to Dan. Taxation is theft. 100 to Dan for being my tax advisor. What's up, Cy? 100 to Dan for the hat.
That was not legal advice.
That was not legal advice. We should just have that on the crawl across the bottom of the screen. 100 to Dan for the hat and another 100 for committing felonies. Sorry, I'm late, y'all. Was finishing up my podcast with Matthew Hunt. Oh, very cool. We love Matthew. And check out Brent's podcast, Aiming Up. It's on all of the channels too. Another really good one. 200 Dan, taxation is theft. Get in, losers. We're gonna crash the Fed. She worked in all your book names on right, like in one. That was good. Nice. It's like a trailer, a Hollywood trailer there. Lancaster Libertarians here. What's up? Good evening, fellow degens. 200 to each candidate who didn't vote for Trump. We got 2 of the 3, I think.
Brent's doing me dirty.
Yeah.
Walk of shame. Walk of shame.
Yeah. 200 Jacob for helping squash that beef with Clint. Oh, nice work. I saw that unfolding. We don't need any more beefs. We've got enough problems in the world. All right, so let
More
me
chicken.
jump into it here. Welcome again to Are You Smarter Than a Politician? Share this out, bust the algorithm. X has kind of hated us for a few weeks, so any help you can give us is greatly appreciated. And we're trying to get subscribers on YouTube. We're getting close to that 500 number, so any help there would be appreciated as well. You can find me on X. I am at Smarter Game Show. Terry is Bats T76. Also, thank you to, we just got back from Virginia, and Amity helped us with the live show. She is Amity Lee 13, and Casey helps me occasionally press the right buttons, and that's not on him, that's on me. He is American versus Gov. And this Friday, it's finally coming. We are so excited. Terry and I are hosting a live 3-hour extravaganza supporting You Are the Power. Our buddy Spike Cohen takes on a gauntlet of formidable friends with plenty of suspense, chaos, and laughs, all for an amazing cause. Last week, we announced Nick Nemeth, TNA professional wrestler. He previously wrestled in the WWE as the champion under Dolph Ziggler, so you might know him by that name. We're really excited to have him. And Simon Winch and Amos Denton from the Appalachian podcast will be on. Good dudes. So tonight we're excited to reveal the final boss, the last man that stands between these challengers and the championship, the one, the only Justin Amash. He's an attorney and the first Libertarian Party member to serve in Congress. That happened in 2019. So join us this Friday, March 6th. It's an hour earlier because we're going 3 hours. So it's at 7 p.m. Eastern. First, we reinvented political shows. Next, we reinvented political debates. Now we're reinventing fundraisers, big guests, real impact, one powerful cause. So this is going to be a ton of fun. We could not be more excited if you couldn't tell by my little spaz out there. And we've got a few conventions left. We'll be up with the aforementioned Rob Yates at the North Carolina convention at the end of this month. Then we've got Texas next month. We may be going to Colorado too. We're working on that. And then we will be live at the National Convention in Grand Rapids, May 21st through 25th. So we're really excited about that. And a new sponsor to the show. Where did I put this? No, I'm screwing this all up. Oh, tonight's show is brought to you by Zoom. If you believe adults should be free to explore their own consciousness and you're looking for a modern, precision-dosed psychedelic experience, check out zoomtrip.com, XUMTRIP, and see what they're building over there. That's the lovely Ovens O'Brien. So appreciate you. Former multiple-time champion on the show. So thank you. And our swag is available on freedomsuperstore.com. I am wearing the Taxation is Theft shirt in honor of Dan. I figured it wasn't on the screen enough time, so I should be wearing it too. And we have mugs and shirts. You can check out our swag at freedomsuperstore.com. Tonight, the grand prize winner, Trump ruined peace prizes, so we're trying to make them great again. You will win the Are You Smarter Than a Peace prize. Also on the prize shelf, we have Swamp Ass Cologne, Mike Johnson's signature cologne, as well as the Ayn Rand Fountainhead Teddy Bear. We also have the home edition of Are You Smarter Than a Politician? An assortment of liberty-minded bobbleheads, including the aforementioned great Justin Amash. And we have a new game, Neoconopoly. It's a game of global domination. And I forgot to say this the other day, but thanks to Chris, I can't remember if this was my idea or his idea, but I send him about 10 of these a day. So thanks to Chris for helping me figure these out. And we also, tariffs are back in the news. So I wanted to bring back the Trump random tariff generator. How this works is you pull his arm to generate a tariff and he pulls it out of his ass. And we have the ICE agent training kit. Everything you need to know to become an ICE agent in 30 minutes. They don't train you, so we will. It comes with the official badge, lots of disguises so you don't embarrass your family and friends, as well as the honorary GED degree. Also new tonight, why have a piggy bank when you have a central bank? We are bringing you the Dollar Destroyer. watch your dollar go to shit all right in front of you. Why put it in a bank and lose it that way when you can just destroy it at your own home? Also, please, we need to get rid of this piece of shit, please. The Trump nativity set, it's already March and nobody's taking this thing. We paid a tariff for it, so please get this out of here. And of course, we have the Lego killdozer, because nobody talks about the killdozer more than me and Casey do. All right, here are the rules. I am the government. Whatever I say goes. Scoring errors count. Life isn't fair. Suck it up, Buttercup. Nobody cares. The rules are you can debate each other, filibuster, and a bunch of other stuff that there's really no rules for. And you start off with negative 500 points because the government gets paid first. Enter scores. This is how scoring works. The chat controls the score. You can give or take up to 100 points from the contestants. And because we believe in crony capitalism, since I am the government, subscribers can give or take up to 200 points because they matter more. Nuking scores. Any former contestant can nuke a score, taking it down 1,000 points, but be strategic because contestants can only be nuked once and it has to be for a good reason. Lightning round. And I forgot to do one thing, so I'm going to just do this here. Pretend I'm being smooth right now. Also, check us out on YouTube at Freedom Uncut. And thank you to our subscribers. Actually, I'm going to segue here. I forgot to load the new one. Pretend like I'm being smooth again. Where is it here? There we go.
Point of information. If I don't pay taxes, do I have to start out with a negative score?
Yes. It's the rules are you get penalized no matter what happens. So, all right. So thank you to our subscribers. Terry's paying to be here. Amity, Ocean Blue, Shirley, Dr. Belay and Lisa, Dan, Chris, Casey, Dave Krantz, who I just saw in Virginia. We had a great time. Jake Day from the If by Whiskey podcast, Phil Ryan, Jacob's paying to be here. We appreciate you, Jacob. Brent from the Aiming Up podcast, Rob, who's in the chat and running for LNC chair, Papa B, the great Lars Mapstead, and new as a subscriber this week, Grumpy Gnome by the podcast that I mentioned earlier, 3 Shots In. Watch at your own risk there. Appreciate you all. And if you want to be a subscriber, you can subscribe to us on X. And I wanted to mention another thing for subscribers. If you want to give me an idea for a question for any of the people on Friday, give me one and you might get a shout out on the big broadcast Friday. We're hoping it's huge. And if you want to sponsor the show, we've got a couple sponsors now, which is pretty cool. Email us at studio@freedomuncut.com. I will put Terry in the back here. She controls the chat and the scoring, make her life extremely difficult. All right, here we go. Lightning round. Jacob, the first question is to you. Category, shockingly, war in Iran. Should the president be able to strike Iran without congressional approval?
No. I don't know if I can really add much more than that, but I mean, I'm an anarchist, if you couldn't tell that from the name Biblical Anarchy. So I don't even believe in the Constitution or the presidency. But if we're going to play this make-believe game that we have limited government, then, we should tell them to play by the rules and to launch an act of aggression against a country which has not even attacked us, that was willing to negotiate with us by all accounts on reasonable terms. Then it's unjustified, even if they got congressional approval, but it's definitely worse when the government doesn't obey the rules they're supposed to obey. But that's, of course, why we all know that the Constitution is a big, giant sham.
All right. Derek, to you. Is preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons worth military action?
Absolutely not. First of all, Iran would not hate us right now if we hadn't been meddling in their affairs since 1953 with Operation Ajax. So the more meddling that we do, the worse things get. So things are not going to get better with, with where we're at. They're obviously going to get a lot worse. And this whole 4 weeks to flatten Iran propaganda that's being spewed around, it's going to take a lot more time and a lot of lives, and it's all going to be for nothing because that it's not going to stabilize that region because we continue to just fuck with things there. So absolutely not.
All right, Dan, to you. Will war with Iran make Americans safer?
Safer. Safer from our local police department? Probably not. That's safer from the IRS. I don't think so. Most of the threats that I think are coming after me are I don't think. I mean, maybe if we were to like round up all the corrupt cops and corrupt IRS agents and corrupt politicians and stick them on the front line, that might make us safer. Maybe, especially if we lose a few in action. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Hypothetically,
Like
in Minecraft.
All right. Jacob, back to you. Categories: foreign policy. Should America reduce its global military footprint?
Reduce it all the way down to zero if we're talking about, of course, a military presence and footprint. We should have a giant footprint in the world in terms of being a actual beacon of free markets, and we should be trading with all. We should be like pushing the idea of American hegemony, but not through military might, but just because we should be the freest country in the world and be inspiring everyone else to try to be as free and as prosperous as us. But we don't make the world freer or safer or more prosperous by going around and building bases everywhere, bombing people, doing regime change. None of this produces the things that our leaders are trying to lie to us and say that they're going to produce. The only people who benefit from this are the people at the top, not people like you and me.
Yeah, being free is a lot of fun. So take it from me. All right, Derek, to you. Should regime change ever be a U.S. objective?
Yes, but not in the way you think. I think that we need regime change here in the U.S. Preferably regime abolishment or abolition, because this is terrible. But to answer the actual spirit of the question, this is how we get a destabilized region of the world. Anytime that we are meddling in who runs what country, it becomes much more destable. And like I said earlier, it just costs a lot of lives, unnecessary lives, and it's just an act of evil. And if we wouldn't fuck with people, then they wouldn't have a reason to hate us.
I agree. Do we lose Dan? This was.
I'm here. I'm here.
All right. If
I'm in the dark, my power went out.
Oh, did? All right. The bunker has backup electricity, I hope.
It is. I just got to kick on the generator.
All right.
It was me.
All right.
I'm here.
You back?
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm here.
All
I'm
right.
here.
Question to you. Should foreign aid be eliminated while we carry massive debt?
I mean, while we carry massive debt. Okay, first of all, I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't care what the government does with their fake printed money, because like my entire perspective has changed. We should take as much of that as we possibly can, and like no more of this like welfare is bad stuff. No, just take all of it. Just loot the damn treasury, because they're going to keep printing it anyways. And the faster you take it from the treasury, the faster they have to print it, the sooner it's going to crash, the sooner the Fed's going to end. And then while we're bringing the money into our own communities, we can swap it out for like stuff that actually matters, like gold and silver and bullets and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. So we're in a competition against the foreign aid. The foreign aid's going to keep going, but we should be taking more of it for ourselves.
I agree. I came to that realization like last year. I said, I think I'm actually in favor of UBI now. I'd rather give it to anybody except for the warmongers. Like, that's how bad it's gotten. Like, just give it to anybody and just crash the whole system. I'm 100% with you. All right, Jacob, to you. Categories: preemptive strikes. Should preemptive war require congressional supermajority approval?
Again, it's always better. Like, if we're talking about compared to what, it's always better to have that limit on the ability of the federal government and the executive to wage war by making them push it through Congress first. But I don't even believe in the idea of a preemptive strike, unless, I mean, it's not preemptive if you have clear evidence that another country has begun to gear up war boats or something and is planning to attack you. But then that means you have evidence you can present to people to say we are, acting in defense. And so that's the whole idea. I think I said this last time I was on this show. The Constitution is an imperfect document, but the idea behind congressional approval actually stems from not just checks and balances, but from the Christian tradition of just war theory, which means that there needs to be just cause in going to war. And so the idea is that the executive branch, even though it's the commanding, the president's the commander in chief over the military, he's supposed to have to go and prove to Congress, which is supposed to be the proxy, the representative for the people, and say, this is why we have to use military force and why it's justified. So again, I think that we should have defense completely privatized. I don't think we should have standing armies and armies funded through taxation and all of that. But if we're talking about comparatively with the system we have now, then yeah, congressional approval is always good, but preemptive strikes are often, I know I'm rambling a bit here, but this is important just to end on. Preemptive strikes are usually just a bunch of BS, right? They're usually acting on supposed evidence, right? Saying like we knew that they were going to attack us, but then they never actually come and provide the evidence. So yeah, that's why congressional approval is important, and they bypass that because they don't want to have to deal with actually showing their work and providing the evidence. They just want to wage war and empire.
100%. Derek, to you. Should presidents face legal consequences for unauthorized strikes?
Absolutely. War is, well, it's a lot of things, and none of them are good. But war is murder. And and I'm gonna kind of steal, or I'm sorry, I'm gonna kind of tax from Jacob a little bit. When comparing whether or not it's better for the government to follow its own rules or than not, then yes, I would agree that having them follow their own rules is the better option. But the government should not be in the business of murdering people. And so if they're not going to follow their rules and they murder people, especially the quote unquote collateral, which is going to be non-combatants or what we would all call innocent lives, presuming they're the real targets were somehow guilty, which is a stretch in and of itself. But yeah, if they don't follow their own rules, then they should be left to face the consequences of those actions as they actually are in reality, and not just treat it like a bad statistic and oops, my bad.
Absolutely. Dan, to you. Is a preemptive military strike ever justified without an imminent threat?
Well, there's always an imminent threat. I mean, they've been 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon for the last 50 years, right? Or 3,000 years or whatever it is. Yeah, it's man, what are the rules of engagement here? What's the imminent threat? I mean, is it a threat on a US military base that's like next to Iran, or does it need to be a threat on like mainland US? There's some really interesting questions with that a lot of different interesting ways you could look at that. But yeah, it's this is the thing. Like, we're always arguing about like, oh, there is an imminent threat, and so they'll fabricate one and all this other stuff. And like, the reality is, every single one of these people have either there's something they're getting out of it, and so they want to go to war, whether it's to like sell more bombs and everything else, or they have some political agenda, and it's good for them, right? And it's like, for everybody else, like, nobody wants this. You even see like people evacuating from Israel and like all this other stuff going on. Like, oh, I thought you guys were there because like you got to support the country, and like, and it's like, no, when the bombs start dropping, people are like, yeah, you know what? I really don't want anything to do with this, especially if they're dropping in your backyard. So it's like this entire conversation is just about like, how can we justify killing each other? Especially like when we have these, the old rich men sending the young poor kids off to war. And of course they do it all remote because nobody commutes anymore. But like, that's what this is all about. It's like these questions are kind of like trying to like say, how can we justify this violence? And the reality is there is no justification for it, and there never should be. So like, people need to kind of wake up to that. There's no, like, the imminent threat is like, okay, sure. Do you want to, so let's say there is an imminent threat. Do you want to defend against it, or do you want to go in and escalate and attack? Because that's how we keep getting into the place that we are, right? Iran's going to look at us and say, oh, they're an imminent threat, we're going to go bomb them. And then just bombs start going in both directions. Like, when is it going to stop? Doesn't make any sense.
Totally. All right, Jacob, back to you. The category is international. Is global domination necessary for national security?
Global dominance is how you ensure that you never have. I mean, I don't really care about national security, but sure, you're not going to have national security. You're not going to have individual community security long term through global dominance for a lot of reasons. One, there's the blowback reason, right? Which is that when you're around the world trying to be the central planner for who gets to be in charge and what countries are allowed to do, and you can't even run your own country worth a damn, then you're going to cause all sorts of chaos, which is going to lead to more crime and more violence, more conflict. You're going to provoke local resistance in areas that you're trying to dominate, and it takes more and more resources, more and more men, American children, young men going out and dying for absolutely no reason to try to assert this dominance on regions. And people don't want to be ruled by a foreign power. I don't even want to be ruled by our domestic government, right? But there's something even more intrinsic about like, oh wow, this government halfway across the world is trying to come and rule over us. People resist that. They fight tooth and nail against that. We've seen that over the last 20 plus years of the war on terror and our interventions in the Middle East and other parts of the world. And then the other thing is that we can't afford it. We can't afford to be the world empire. We are bankrupt. We've already bankrupted our country, and we are putting a debt that can never be paid on our children and our grandchildren. We can't afford to be an empire. We need to go back to first. Would be a great first step would be to go back to being a limited constitutional republic. But even that, as we see, we started with that and we got to where we're at now. That's why we need to go further this time and not just stop at small government. We need to go all the way to abolishing centralized government.
All right. Derek's clapping. Derek, to you. Should trade continue freely even with adversarial nations?
Well, I guess the question is, are you a free market type of person, or are you a centralized market Keynesian? If you believe in free markets, then you believe in free trade. Free trade does not have sanctions besides those that the market places itself. Everywhere in the world has resources and things that everywhere else can benefit from. And so opening up free trade just drives down costs. It helps increase quality of product because everywhere is going to demand this quality because the market is open to the entire world and not just some small little area. It's beyond me how anybody, especially somebody claiming to be liberty minded, to say that it's somehow free and liberty to control who people voluntarily trade with, whether that's your next door neighbor, somebody from 3 towns over, or somebody from across the national socialist border, that collective border that tells us that we are we and not, you are you as an individual. So, trade should absolutely be free and open to anyone who wishes to do trade with that person or country or whomever.
So I had this idea a while ago, but you're the perfect person to ask. Can we start calling the Keynesians Pansians because they love big daddy government?
Approved.
Okay,
I said so. So therefore we can do that.
Excellent. point of order, something, I forget, but yeah, thank you. And Dan's doing costume changes. Excellent. All right, Dan, to you. Should international organizations influence U.S. domestic policy?
Ooh, yeah, I think this is really interesting. I think they should actually, because if the U.S. is going to try to influence other countries and what they do in their countries, then I think those countries should absolutely influence what the U.S. does in their country, because equality or something. I want to jump back to something Jacob said actually, because this is really interesting. There's the whole we can't afford it and we've got too much debt and we're saddling our kids with debt. First of all, my kids aren't going to pay a fucking dime on this debt, right? This debt is, like you said, literally unpayable. But what's interesting is, like, imagine, right? You're hanging out with your friends and they're like, hey, let's go murder someone. And your only excuse is like, I can't, man. I got to go to work because I don't have enough money right now. Imagine trying to justify we can't go to war because we don't have the money for it. That should never be the justification. And you're absolutely right to those facts, but it's like, holy shit, how stupid is that argument that we have to even go there? And I get it, because like there are so many people who are so bloodthirsty, and it's like, oh, maybe that's the only thing they care about is their pocketbook and their taxes. But yeah, but so okay, so if we want to apply the same rules, and this is what's amazing. When you look at the US government and what the Supreme Court has said about its ability to steal from its own citizens, they've said, forget about the fact that like we won a war, and the US is supposed to be this whole new experiment where like we're this whole new free thing and like it's never been done before. Forget about all that, because the Supreme Court says the government's ability to tax comes from their sovereign power, just like every other country in the world. And if China can tax their people, why can't we? This is what the Supreme Court says on the government's ability to tax. So if we're supposed to be equal to like all these other countries, if we can go halfway around the world and tell them how they're supposed to run their country, why shouldn't people from halfway around the world? Oh, Israel, they're already doing that, I guess. I don't know.
And I'll give you 100 points per answer if your hat gets bigger every time you answer. Just throwing that out there. All right. Jacob, back to you. The category is foreign influence in U.S. government. Should foreign aid recipients be barred from lobbying Congress?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you're going to do that, because I mean, I think as we've seen from the Epstein files and a lot of other things, like this is a giant house of cards, and trying to get the government to obey rules to make it more accountable to the people is kind of a fool's errand. But sure, like in theory, it would be better to have that kind of like fiduciary responsibility to be like, if you're receiving like foreign aid or something, or advocating for, I want to abolish all foreign aid. I don't think that people should be coming to our government and lobbying for other governments to receive foreign aid or anything like that. But even if you try to ban it, like they're just gonna do that stuff behind closed doors anyway. I want people to start realizing that what you see being done, in the Capitol building, in the White House, I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all, but it's 90% political theater, because what's really governing our country is unelected bureaucrats and corporate interests, weapons manufacturers, the military-industrial complex, as well as not just in our country, but across the world and in countries like Israel, but not just Israel. Big banks and whatnot. Like they want you to pay so much attention to what's going on in Congress and DC. And I'm not saying you don't pay attention to that, but it's like, if all you care about is electoral politics and laws and people, lobbying and whatnot, that's even kind of a distraction to what's going on behind the scene, which I think is a much bigger issue, which is why they don't want you to look into the Epstein files, because it kind of starts to show to like the normies out there that what we've been saying is pretty much true all along, which is that there is such a thing as like the deep state, that there is this idea of like these wealthy elites that kind of like run things from the shadows. So it's why we need to keep pressing on that and pushing for transparency, which we know won't come, which just again shows how they're just a bunch of liars.
Yeah, it's a house of cards if the cards are PDFs. I'll give you that. Derek, to you.
The hang on. The correct term is actually never mind. I know why you censored it. It's for YouTube. Sorry, I can't
Yeah.
say what I want to.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm glad you got the joke at least. I went technical there. All right. We're off to a good start if Derek's censoring himself. That's excellent. All right. Derek, to you. Is foreign influence a greater threat than domestic corruption?
I mean, it's tough, but yeah. Domestic corruption is terrible and evil, obviously. But um, I think the ramifications are different, especially as Israel has proved that foreign influence can literally start wars, which, as I previously said, is mass murder. Um, Domestic corruption doesn't really lead to that, which is why I would say that it's somewhat better, though obviously still very, very evil. Which there is no way for government to exist in such a way that is free of corruption. So that's why it's all unfit to exist. So yeah, definitely the foreign influence.
All right. Dan, to you. Should campaign donations with foreign ties be prohibited outright?
Somebody said something. We were talking about something else, and somebody said something about if you ban it, it's going to happen anyways. It's just going to happen in the shadows. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, it's already happening now. How can you really stop that? I think it's silly. And what actually ends up happening, like we hear this all the time, right? It's going to be this new tax and it's only going to be on the billionaires. And then like all of a sudden it passes and it's like, hey, wait a minute. Why did my taxes go up? I think you're going to see the same thing with this. So like we have libertarians who try to run for office and they get hit with these campaign contribution limitations, which might be a couple $1,000s. But if you have one single donor who's willing to give you $1 million to run your campaign, sorry, you can't take it. Well, actually, you can. There's ways around it. But sorry, you can't take it. They don't want you to take it because they don't want you to run your campaign. But the people who put those rules in place, they have 1 million donors who can each do $2,000 each. And now they've got like billions of dollars in their coffers, right? So like this whole thing is like, it's silly. In reality, it's like, who cares where the influence comes from, right? We have, what is it? The Austrian School of Economics. Oh my God, what would Ron Paul say? Which, by the way, I have this bottle of Blood of Tyrants signed by Ron Paul. What would Ron Paul say if you had to ban Austrian economics in the United States because it's foreign influence? It doesn't make any sense. We hear foreign influence and we're thinking like, oh, these evil people from China and Russia trying to collude in our elections and like all this negative stuff. But the reality is there's a lot of people in foreign countries who want freedom for America because they don't have any in their country. And they know America is the most free place in the world, or they think it is. And so they want to support American freedom. And you put these limitations in place and it's like, sure, it could go the other way. But hey, I mean, we've got homegrown communists in the United States who think that communism is the best idea. And of course, that comes from other places too. But like, I mean, aren't we an English colony? Like, where do you draw the line on this? It's really kind of silly. It's a war of ideas and you can't kill an idea. So what are you going to do? It's like, I think it's ultimately a distraction to like get us to fight each other on things that just really don't matter. We should be fighting for freedom, not like where ideas come from. Is that too hippie? Is that too hippy dippy for you guys?
Not at all. Enter your scores in the chat if you've not done so already. And please share this out again. It seems like X is giving us some problems. So we appreciate you guys getting this out in front of as many people as possible. Lots going on in the chat. I'm probably going to lose my voice. All right. Casey's got 200 to Jacob to counter Brent leaving him out. Minus 100 to Jacob for the gullible voting patterns.
That's fair. That's fair.
I have a bad attitude from the dollar store M&M Marcus Matthews from the Black Powder podcast. 100 to Dan if he can confirm that Mark Whitney is still alive and is not a figment of my imagination.
I'm texting him right now. I think I have his number.
200 to Dan for not paying taxes. Minus 100 to Dan for the Roberts Rule of Orders point. You made my PTSD flare. Alex is here. What's up, Alex? 100 to Jacob for turning me on to the show. Excellent. Appreciate that. Minus 200 to Free for not mentioning that you're running for chair. You're not really running anywhere, are you, Grumpy? 100 to Derek for looking like he's on a Death Star. Oh, I like that. 100 to Jacob for playing make-believe. 200 to Terry for attempting to herd all these cool cats. Yeah, it's a terrible job. 113 to Jacob, great answer. 200 to Jacob for calling out Constitution as trash. 200 to Jacob, it's all a sham. Points to Derek for Ajax. Points to Derek, 4 weeks to flatten Iran. I'm dead. 200 to Derek. We did provoke this shit for generations. Points to Derek for Ajax. Points to Derek for bringing up I don't even know how to say that one.
Mossadegh. Mohammed Mossadegh.
Yeah. 100 to ANCAP, great answer. 100 to Dan, my enemies are here. 200 to Dan for using cops and IRS agents in his Minecraft game. 200 hypothetically positive points to Dan. 200 to Dan, he's highlighting what really matters. 200 to Dan for running cops through the military meat grinder. 100 to Dan, but Barron Trump has heel spurs. Pray for his recovery. And they are genetic.
I hear they have free healthcare in Iran.
Yeah, genetic excuses. Points to Jacob, let's inspire the world. Points to Jacob, reduce the military footprint to 0. Points to Derek. Points for regime change right here in the U.S. Points to Jacob, lead the world through example. Don't rule it through force. Points to Derek for the awesome forest green shirt. Save some ladies for the rest of us, please. Points to Derek for destabilizing regions so they don't use the resources we want to steal for ourselves. 100 to Dan for the tasteful fairy lights. 100 to Dan, does the drip game work with the color matching? Points to Dan, crash the Thed. Points to Dan for gold, silver, and brass. Points to me for this lineup. It's so based I can hardly stand it. Appreciate you. That's a Terry thing though. Points to Jacob. I like white shelves. What are those things all over them? Well, William's here. What's up, William? Points to Jacob for rambling. That actually makes sense, unlike Mango Man. Points to Derek. War is murder. Points to Derek. I forgot why, but it was a good reason. Trust the plan. Points. Derek, steel and tax are interchangeable. Points for war is murder. Points to Derek for identifying what politicians fear the most. Consequences. Points to Dan. Best long middle name I've ever seen. JD Vance should change his name again to that. 136 for the first person to mock Border Barbie cosplay Christy. No. Points to Dan. God promised Iran was 2 weeks away from a nuclear bomb 3,000 years ago. Yeah, that's true. Points to Dan. The imminent threat defense they always use. An additional 96 for the first person to tie her to Grumpy Gnome. Yeah. That's a whole sex scandal. Points to Dan. Nice hat. Do you have a big Texas cowboy hat version? That'd be cool. Big yellow hat.
Yeah, that prompted this one.
Points to Jacob for using provoked. Points to Jacob, abolish government. Points to Dan, April 15th is an imminent threat too. That's a bigger threat than Iran, just saying. Points to Jacob, we can't afford an empire. Points to Jacob, abolish the whole ass government forever. Limited government is a fairy tale that only fools believe in. Points to Jacob. Points to Dan, escalations don't make us safer. Points to Derek for his camera freezing while talking about quality. Points to Derek, government has no legitimate role in free trade. Points to Derek, I sent more points, but free is the government and limits the free market on the show. That's 100% true. This is a oligarchy. 200 to Derek for approving Free's Pansian term, and minus 200 to me for using Robert's Rule of Order. I'll pay for that later. 100 to Dan for every new hat he puts on per question. 100 to me, government demands and threatens point taxation without representation. Points to Dan because of quality. Points to Derek for having 100 meme tabs open in your brain and still being able to speak. Minus to Dan, Jacob's point was trying to control the world creates economic oppression too. Points to Dan, I tip my hat to you, sir. Do you have a motorcycle helmet version? That'd be pretty cool. Points to Dan for repping ANCAP colors like everywhere. Minus to Dan for trying to out Larry and Maj long answers, but 200 because I love his answers. 200 to Dan, something Israel oof. Points to Jacob, political theater. Points to Jacob, I understand what you're saying, I think. Minus to Derek for censorship. Points to everyone that didn't vote for someone on the Epstein list. Points to Derek for calling out Israel. Points to Derek for bowing to the YouTube overlords to save the show. Thank you. Points to Derek, war is mass murder by our government. Points to Jacob, a lot of political reforms are just half measures that won't make a difference. Points to Dan, campaign finance laws disproportionately punish independent and libertarian candidates. Taxes hurt the middle class more than the rich. Points to Dan for mentioning the GOAT, Ron Paul. Points to Dan for the blood of tyrants. 100 more for having Ron Paul sign it. Super jealous right now. Same here. Points to Dan for fighting for freedom. Points to Dan for hippy dippy. Points to Dan, funding will come from foreign anyways. Austrian economics, good point. Billion points to Terry. She deserves more. Although if she could put a couple less things in the start, I'd have to read less. Points to Derek. Just make say it again. I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
Mossadegh.
Oh, Grumpy wants to nuke Dan for calling us a British colony.
That was sarcasm. Come on.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking.
Well, let's get it out of the way. I got it last time. Let's get it out of the way. Can I go negative from that?
No, this is the one time. You get it right here.
Right.
You get it right here. There it is.
All right.
There it is. We got.
I'm like a cockroach. I will survive the nuclear blast.
All right. All right. Let's see where we're at. The nuke's not reflected, but Dan's in the lead temporarily. Oh no, he'll still be in the lead after the nuke. 43-82. Derek's in second, 31-90. Jacob 31-13, so just a little bit behind. Jacob, third place. What do you think so far?
I think I started out slow, but I'll make a rebound. But good answers all around. I'm having a lot of fun.
Awesome. Derek, second place. What do you think?
Like I said, man, I'm just here to have fun. I'm just here to have a good time. So, yeah.
Excellent. Dan, first place, and you got nuked, and you're still in first place. What do you think?
Yeah, so I like to ride my bike from here to downtown. I like to ride it back, and it's a great way to stay in shape.
I feel like that wasn't the question, but I don't know. I don't even care.
Someone will get the reference.
All right. All right. Here we go. Round 2. Jacob, to you. Category is anti-taxation. Is taxation beyond basic government functions unjustified?
There's extra words in that question, Free. Taxation is never justified. Taxation is theft. There is no right amount of taxation. There's no, well, if it's for essential services, then it's theft. It's always theft. It's never justified. I can't show up to your house and say, give me half of your income, and then say, well, it's okay because I'm going to build roads with it, or I'm going to build a hospital with it, or I'm going to go bomb some brown people halfway across the world with it. Still theft. Doesn't matter if I wear a badge. Doesn't matter if the majority of the country elected me and said you're allowed to steal now. And by the way, it's not even half the country, because more than half the country doesn't even show up to vote in the first place. So sorry, I don't mean to dump on the question. It's a good question because it gives me a chance to just once again reiterate what Dan says every time his face shows up on the screen, which is that taxation is theft. More accurately, it is extortion, which is a type of theft.
I don't say that often, do I?
In my defense, this was one of your categories. Somebody submitted this, so this is not my fault. This is going to be a bloodbath for me, but I'll wear it. It's fine. Derek, to you. Should Americans be allowed to opt out of federal entitlement systems?
Yes, because even if you somehow believe in government's legitimacy, which we've already established very well that it is not legitimate, but liberty is the ability to make choice. So if you are not able to make a choice, then that choice is made for you and violates your consent. Violating your consent is the very definition of unethical and immoral. So yeah, if you are robbed of your choice, then you are a victim of what is known as slavery. So yes, anybody should be able to opt out of anything because that is their choice.
All right. sidestepped that one. So thanks for that. Dan, to you. Is taxation coercive by nature?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how else you get people like, are people just like, hey, would you like to donate to our government fund? No, it's donate or else. There was an interesting thread where somebody posted a sign on their grocery store that said, sorry, we have to charge a 25-cent per bag tax. This was someplace in California, like a gas station in California. 25 cents per bag tax for giving you a bag when you buy, you know, some munchies at the gas station. And I was like, well, yeah, of course, because the state is violent, right? And people, I'm like, why wouldn't you just contest it and put up a sign saying, hey, we're going to refuse to do it, right? Because the government is violence, the state is violence, and everything else. And somebody was in the comments like, you're a moron. The government's not violent. And I'm like, well, what would happen if they didn't charge and pay the 25 cents per bag tax? They'd send police to shut the place down. First, they'd non-violently just put some chains around the door handles so they couldn't open. But if they opened it anyways and went into their own property and sold their own goods, eventually someone's going to get hauled off to jail. And if they tried to resist, they'd be potentially unalived. That's the reality, right? Government has a monopoly on force. So yeah, it's absolutely coercive, but it's also manipulative because they've manipulated a lot of people into paying a lot of taxes, which I mean, arguably is also coercive, but like they've convinced people that like, first of all, it's voluntary. And then they're also paying for roads that somehow never get repaired. So that's like a whole different, like mental manipulation is like a different level of coercion, but it's ultimately the same thing. I mean, yeah, all of it.
All right. 100 points to me for surviving the taxation category with 3 anarchists. So, all right, Jacob, back to you. Category is the Federal Reserve. Should the Federal Reserve be fully audited and transparent?
100% we should audit the Federal Reserve. And then when we try to do that and that doesn't happen, hopefully people will then realize that then the only solution is to end the Federal Reserve. There should not be a centrally planned economy and bank that's able to just print money out of thin air. As we already said, Keynesian economics is dumb. It's well, I forget what your term was. Free. I wanted to cite it here. Pansy. Yeah, Pansian economics. It's absolutely nonsense. Currency needs to be something that emerges as just like things that people want to trade and that they see as having value that they can use as a exchange for value. This is why gold has been currency, silver has been currency. I think cryptocurrency has a lot of merit to it, but fiat currency and the ability to just print money causes, as we know as Austrians, the boom bust cycle, and it just leads to all. I think people underestimate the degree to which economic oppression causes the destabilization of not just like people's life savings and their ability to like get ahead, but it's destabilizing to families, to communities. The economic consequences of the Federal Reserve and the policies it sets destroy people's lives. It causes an increase in like broken families, in people being children being raised without parents, people not being able to afford houses, not wanting to have kids, leading to lower birth rates. I mean, there is just a endless downstream effect of all these negative consequences that come from the Federal Reserve, as well as funding all, like we talked about in the kind of the early parts of the show, all of the wars, all of the empire. So yeah, start with auditing the Fed. That's like an easier ask, but just like we can't get Epstein transparency, we're not going to get Federal Reserve transparency either.
I appreciate that you remember the crazy things I say. You remembered on the space the other night that I said that we need to 3D print wood chippers. So I appreciate you remembering these things. Yeah. Thank you for that. Derek, to you. Has the Federal Reserve made economic inequality worse?
Yes, absolutely, because its whole purpose is supposedly to stabilize the markets, and it has failed abysmally at doing any of that. It has been hyperinflationary and caused the U.S. dollar to absolutely plummet, which makes it harder to live. So it makes it, if you already have money, you're not as impacted by the inflationary costs than if you have less. So it widens that gap that leftists like to cry about all the time. And they don't realize that the enemy is the government or the private bank entity that owns the government at this point. I think that's kind of the dynamic that they have going on. I don't know of any other organization that can actually go to a congressional hearing and basically tell them to fuck off. It's absolutely wild, the power that the Federal Reserve has. But anyway, I digress. That's my answer.
All right. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, all right. I just snorted. Dan, to you. Does the Fed operate with too little democratic accountability?
I think they have too much accountability. They are it's a private bank and it's overregulated. I mean, think about how much interference they have from the federal government. They can't just print money whenever they want. The federal government basically has to authorize how much of their own money they can print. What sense does this make? In a true free market, they should be able to print as much money as they want, devalue their currency as fast as they can, and nobody would be using it because it would be absolutely worthless already by now, which I'm pretty sure is what everybody wants. But instead, I see people investing their retirement funds in treasury bonds, which are backed by Federal Reserve notes, which is kind of antithetical to the whole end the Fed thing. But yeah, no, I think they should have absolutely no regulations, because if they had no regulations, they would have crashed a long time ago, or they probably wouldn't have been so irresponsible to make their currency so worthless that nobody would be complaining about inflation. One of those two things would have happened. So yeah, let them free market, let them do whatever they want. Just take away their legal tender status, because I mean, yeah, that's no fair that they have that advantage. That's an extra privilege granted them by the federal government. So take that away. But yeah, let them do whatever they want. I don't use their money.
All right, am I supposed to add this to the screen?
I don't know. I don't know what I was pressing. I just
You press buttons, so we have to press buttons too. So that a tiny hat and a big hat both on the same screen. We're gonna win an Emmy or something. Excellent.
Wait, are you saying I'm a member of the Small Hat Club?
Oh boy. And we're off YouTube. All right. Jacob, to you. The category is monetary policy. Should interest rates be set by markets instead of central planners?
Oh, I love this question. Yes. Interest rates are really important. It doesn't sound like something that should be like, people might be like, why do we want to know about interest rates? And, are you just going to be preaching like your free market capitalist propaganda? Interest rates, as I was kind of alluding to in my first answer about how the Federal Reserve destroys families and destroys culture, interest rates are signals. They're signals to investors, they're signals to business owners, to individuals, that sort of lets them know, like, what is the cost of going into debt. And when you make, through the Federal Reserve and the artificial lowering of interest rates, you make the cost of going into debt artificially low. That creates, as well as adding cheap money and sort of like liquoring up banks with sort of like this dual policy of giving them cheap money and then bailing them out when they're reckless with the free money, and being able to set the interest rates artificially low for them to then lend out and make a profit on still. This leads to all of these distortions in the economy, which lead to the boom bust cycle. It leads to malinvestment, people putting money into things that they normally wouldn't do, because usually the cost of the money or the cost of the debt would be higher. And then, of course, the banks get bailed out, as we have seen several times over the last couple of decades. And so the only entity, if you want to call it that, that should set interest rates should be the markets. It should be that the individual banks, no bank should be considered too big to fail. And a bank needs to set interest rates based upon actually looking at, well, what is the risk of this individual investment for this individual person or business, and how to make sure that we're not going to lose so much money if people default on these loans that we go under. And if they do a bad job of that, then by free market standards, they were bad stewards of money and they should go out of business, and another bank that does a better job should take their place. A true sign of a healthy economy is not how much people spend, right? Because spending can be done with debt, but it's how much people have in savings. But because of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates the way they are, that's why no one saves anymore, because you barely get any return on investment on savings. Whereas with low interest rates, you're incentivized to spend more and get into debt rather than save. And then people are put into a high time preference mindset where all they think about is consuming for the now and not planning for the future. Also known for chair.
Oh boy. We're spreading misinformation. I'll be back on HBO again for that one. All right, Derek, to you. Is centralized monetary control incompatible with a republic?
With the republic itself, it depends on what the magical sacrosanct piece of paper says the rules for such a republic are, and when it comes to monetary policy, I would think that at least the proponents of a Republican form of government tell me that they're pro-liberty. I would think that they would want something that would allow for the free market to set such things. So, yeah, I know that kind of sidestepped, but I hope it counted.
I just wanted to hear it, but I liked it. Dan, to you. Should the U.S. return to a commodity-backed currency?
This is a trick question, I think, because the government should not have a currency. So if you mean by the U.S., you mean the government, not the territory, which I think you would mean the government here. They shouldn't have a currency. They shouldn't set a currency. And what's interesting is a lot of people talk about legal tender laws and like no state shall make anything but gold and silver legal tender. What's interesting about that is you need legal tender laws for shitty money. You don't need legal tender laws for gold and silver or crypto or anything else, because that's what people want to accept. Legal tender laws were created for shitty money. Oh, these continentals are worthless. Well, take them or we're taking you to jail. Oh, you're shaving off metal coins. Well, take them at full value or we'll take you to jail. This is the whole purpose of these legal tender laws. So should a government, but no, they should do nothing. They should, like, the people should be free to decide what currency they want to use. It doesn't matter if it's crypto, if it's gold, silver, if it's private issued money from a private bank backed by gold and silver, whatever. If they want pure fiat, and there's, as much as I hate the Federal Reserve notes, there's benefits to it. I mean, I wouldn't hold on to them long term, but they have benefits over, other things for different reasons. Everyone like fights over like, oh, this currency is the best and everything should be around this, and we should have gold is heavy. So since it loses on that mark of being transportable, we'll make a paper currency that's backed by gold. But think about this. The paper people say it was 1970. There's a couple different times where we went off the gold standard. The gold standard is not really the Nixon thing, but we had a gold standard at some point and then we didn't. How did that happen? So it's like if we go back to a gold standard where we have some paper currency that's backed by gold, what's going to stop them from snapping their fingers again and saying like, oh, we have an emergency. We don't have any gold in Fort Knox. And so we're going to have to, so this money that we said was backed by gold actually isn't. And that happens overnight and your entire like world just flipped upside down. Why would you do that to yourself? Forget about all that shit. Just let everyone have all kinds of different currencies and like, forget about the government having the currency that everyone else has to use. That's force, right? To say everybody else has to use the same currency that you think is the best. Use whatever you think is best. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't force anybody else to use just one currency. How about that?
All right. Jacob, to you, the category is the national debt. Should lawmakers be barred from re-election after voting for deficit increases?
Again, I like these questions because even though the practical enforcement of this, or the idea that we even could pass that, is perhaps not realistic, but I like the idea of like making this a talking point to talk to voters, to be like, wouldn't this be a good idea? Because it gets them to sort of dip their toe into trying that experiment of like, can we make the government accountable to the people? I think some people are not ready for that truth, that the government is not accountable to the people. This whole idea of the American experiment being that we're a nation of the people, that we have government from the consent of the people, that it represents us. It's all a lie. It's all made up. There's beautiful things in the Declaration of Independence and in the founding of America that, were sort of like, I think, noble and praiseworthy developments in human history on sort of the march towards humans embracing liberty more, but it still fell short. And I like this idea, though, of pushing people to like, just try it. Like, you don't like that the government doesn't represent you, so try to make it represent you. Try to make it accountable, including saying that like politicians who show that they are, within this closed system, unable to like have any sort of fiduciary or fiscal responsibility to the people and vote for deficit increases, like that within the kind of constitutionalist small small L libertarian world, that can make sense. It's never going to happen because the incentives of government are completely the opposite of that. They're the opposite of being fiscally responsible, because you don't have to earn the money, right? A business doesn't get money unless they convince someone that like, I have something of value to give you, and you'll give up your hard-earned money in exchange for that, the product I have or the service I have. Government can tax money from you, and it's not voluntary. You don't get to choose from competing services. It's the one option you have that you're forced to take. And then if they don't tax enough to pay for the stuff they want to fund, they'll just print the money out of thin air or borrow it. And so, yeah, again, I like this idea. I like the question. I'm not shitting on it. Let's start a big movement of people who want to get hold government accountable, starting with making politicians be fiscally responsible. And then when that fails, they'll be one step closer to being ready for anarchy.
I appreciate that. Trying to float some ideas, see if we can straighten out this shit show at any point. Derek, to you. Has debt weakened America's long-term global position?
That's an interesting question. Yes, it has, but it's mostly done by the devaluation of the dollar, and I know that the debt has a correlation with that. But with the dollar kind of being worthless, the only thing that gives it any real relative value is every other currency being worthless. But you do see countries trying to make moves to get off having the dollar as being used as the medium of exchange, which didn't happen, 50 years ago. So yeah, I definitely think that it does. It does weaken our global position, but then again, the only global position anyone should have is individual. But that's another topic for something else.
All right. Jesus Christ. Dan, to
Yeah.
you. Is the national debt a greater threat than foreign adversaries? If you could see the question, it's on the screen.
A threat to who? Because I don't have to pay it, so I don't have any debt collectors knocking on my door asking for money to pay that debt. Now, there is the IRS, which brings up an interesting question. If you lose your crypto in a boating accident, is that tax deductible? And I would argue yes, just make sure you file a police report within the year that you plan to deduct it, because you're going to need to show proof of the loss, which is I lost my seed phrase on a water-soluble piece of paper. Yeah, no, I mean, look, is it a threat to the federal government? Sure. because they can only tax us so much, and then they just have to start printing money, which is going to collapse their dollar. And as their dollar collapses, they have to print faster. That's the whole thing with hyperinflation is they don't just print it faster because they need more of it. They print it faster because as they need more of it, they also need to print more of it because nobody wants to take it. So even their military contractors are going to be like, what am I going to do with this shit? I can't even wipe my ass with it, right? So they're going to print faster and faster and faster. So the threat is to the government because this is their only source. Like I said, Fort Knox is empty, right? They have nothing. China's probably shitting their pants because they're holding a bunch of treasury bonds and they know they can't redeem them for anything. All they can do is they can use that money to buy stuff from America, but like they want to buy land, but they can't take that back with them, right? So they want to buy gold, but there's not much to sell. So yeah, it's the whole threat is to the government, but this is the government's thing, right? The government wants us because we are the slaves of the government. Like the government's like, you have these like psychopaths in office who are just like, I want to do amazing things. I want to take over countries. It's going to be huge. We're going to have the hugest empire, the greatest empire. We're going to take over all these countries. And so you need people to do that, right? Because Trump can't do that on his own. Biden can't do that. Biden can't wipe his ass on his own. But nobody can do any of this stuff on their own, right? So they need millions of people to do all these things so that they can drop bombs on other countries around the world. And how do you get people to do that? You force them to pay taxes because now you have them in control with debt. And so the biggest threat to the government is that they can't print money. That's not a threat to us. Let them collect. That's the thing. It's only a threat to us if your retirement money is saved in treasury bonds and everything else. That's why they spend so much time telling you treasury bonds are the safest place you can save your money. It's absolute nonsense. Sure, they can always repay their bonds because they can just print more money, but that devalues it. And that's like the whole thing. I think everybody here gets that. But it's like we have like as many people as I know who get this and understand this, they still, for some reason, they're like, oh, I'm just going to go to the ATM and take all the money out of my bank and keep it under my mattress. But look at the money. Look at the money. It says right on there, Federal Reserve note. This is a bank note. Your money is still in the bank. You can pull these out at the ATM, but your money is still in the bank. So you haven't taken your money out of the bank. Instead, what you need to do is transfer all your money to somewhere that sells gold or crypto and take actual hard assets and forget about this money, forget about this debt, because it's not your problem. It's only your problem if you're using their shitty money.
Fuck the government.
Fuck them.
All right. Enter your scores in the chat if you've not done so already, and share this out again if you don't mind. Let's jump in the chat and see what's going on here. Lots of craziness. You guys have lots of fans. So I believe that's feminist misogynist. Welcome. Daniel's here. Oh, thanks, Dan won. We're going to call it early. Just taking me the rest of the show.
He definitely won with the look.
Clearly biased.
Yeah. He's winning the fashion, the swimsuit competition of the show. Oh man, I didn't see that Zelda picture. 200 to Jacob, 100 Dan for being a cockroach and surviving the nuke. 200 pity points to Jacob for being in third place. Points to the chat for making Freeze read so much badassery. Yeah, it's a lot of chat today. 100 to Jacob. It's always theft. Points to Jacob, third place. Bless his heart. Points to Jacob, taxation is theft. Same. Points to Jacob, taxation is theft. -1 for saying there's no right amount. Correct amount is 0. Points to Dan for embracing nuclear energy. Points to Jacob. -50 to Derek for the screen freezing. Am I watching The Matrix or am I smarter than a politician? Points to Derek for opting out or in. Self-determination points. OB's here. The lovely OB. Check out her artwork. Follow her on X. 200 to Dan. Taxation is theft. The state is violence. Points to Jacob. Democracy is fake. Minus to Dan. Dan is a Fed. That's what his hat says. Boom.
Definitely
and the
not.
Fed. Points to Jacob. Then 5 back for acknowledging it's nonsense. 200 to Jacob for defunding pansies. I like olive trees a lot better. Points to Jacob and the Fed. Points to Jacob for the Zelda merch. Points to Jacob and the Fed and explaining why. Here we go. Known for chair. I think we did this. Minus to Dan. It's 10 cents a bag. Points to Jacob. Inflation destroys culture. Is it lagging for others? I don't think so. I see it. Here we go. Minus to me for snorting. Did point so I could get a screenshot. 100 cerebral points to Derek. Forrest Gump and I are impressed with his answers. Points to Dan. Another hat and devaluing the currency. Printer goes burr burr. Points to Dan for the hat trick. Oh, I like that. Points to Dan for small hat club. I may have said that on accident. Points to Dan. Crash the Fed. Points to Jacob. The Fed destroys families and culture. Points to Dan. No small hats in Texas. Maybe big heads. Holy Jesus with a library card. Jacob loves a question. 200 points. Points to Jacob for liquoring up banks. Minus to Jacob for attempting a legitimate interest rate instead of crashing the Fed. Points to Jacob. You can tell he read those books behind him. That's 100% true. 100 to Jacob for understanding Austrian. Points to Jacob. Strong economy measured by savings rates. Bingo. Points to Jacob. I spy enough already on the shelf. Minus 92 to Jacob for gnome for chair. Points to Dan. Government should not set a currency. Points to Dan. Government shouldn't have anything to do with monetary value. Points to Derek. I'm a proud follower of his X profile. Note, I'm not a profiler for the FBI. You should donate to libertarian Christians. But minus 100 to Dan for every hat change he makes. Only the big yellow one should be worn. Yeah, we like that one best. Phil's here. What's up, Phil? Points to Dan for fighting against a new forced printed currency. Points to Dan for having a hat collection. Oh, I really like his answers too. Points to Jacob for bless your heart chuckle for the question ANCAPs have to answer while they grit their teeth. Points to Jacob for understanding consent. Minus 1 for voting for someone who doesn't with respect to governance or relations with here we go. Points to Jacob for saying all the words with hand gestures. Points to Jacob for not shitting on it. Yeah, I appreciate that a ton. Points to Jacob. It's all a lie. I didn't know the government lies to us. #NGov. True. They just like bombing people, huh? Another 200 for the chat response, bro. Points to Derek. Devaluation of the dollar. Our money is another root of evil. Points to Jacob. I forgot why, but something he said. Points to Dan for the Monero glasses. Those kind of looked like Minecraft Monero glasses. 100 to Dan for the Monero glasses and tax tips. 100 to Dan. He ran out of hats and moved to Monero glasses. Dan is trying real hard to get in the show intro. Dan's a big deal. He's already in the show intro. Give me some credit. Points to Dan for tomfoolery. Points to Dan. Me too. I wrote my seed phase on water-soluble paper too. More common than I thought. I don't feel dumb anymore. Points. Yeah, we did that. Points to Dan. Hard assets crash the Fed. Points to Dan. Thanks for the tip. Going to get a tattoo with my seed phrase on my arm, not my ass. How can I read it? A lot of people in government would be able to read it, but I digress.
Only the guys with the blue gloves.
What's going on? We had a little flip-flop here. Jacob in the lead, 6,086. Dan behind. He got nuked once already, 5,907. And Derek, 5,440. It's tightening up. So this is getting interesting. All right, let's do another one here. This one's brought to us by our friends at Zoom Beyond Shrooms. That is zoomtrip.com, xumtrip.com. The category is drug legalization. Should the federal, this is to Jacob, should the federal government legalize marijuana nationwide?
Compared to what? I mean, I'd rather them have it be, legalize it than, ban it or criminalize it. But I just project that the government should be in a position to legalize or criminalize it in the first place. The government has no business telling you what you put in your body or what two consenting adults are voluntarily trading from one person to another. And that's not just for marijuana. That, I love that classic Ron Paul moment where he even says that we need to legalize heroin, and everyone was like, booing him. And then he just at that classic comeback, he's like, raise your hand here if you would use heroin if we legalized it tomorrow. So I'm sorry, like, for all the conservatives out there that are going to like wring their hands and clutch their pearls over this answer to this day, it's like, I'm sorry, like we actually talked about this the other night in the spaces we did together, free on feminist misogynists X page, which is that like conservatives want to pretend that they're the people, that they're the movement, that they have the party of personal responsibility. But then what they do at the voting box, what the policies they advocate for, are a big giant nanny state, because they don't think that people can take personal responsibility. They think that we need big daddy government to come and take care of everybody. I reject that completely, on top of the fact that the government has no right at all to exist, let alone to tell people what they put in their bodies or what they trade with other consenting adults for.
All right. Derek, to you, would legalization reduce cartel violence and border instability?
Well, absolutely, because the only reason that that any element of violence exists whatsoever is because it is a black market. We saw the same thing with alcohol prohibition in the 30s. Black markets have this violent component just because, in order to compete, in order to stay alive, they have to be prepared for the ultimate aggressor, the government, to come in and invoke violence against them. There is no means for redress for real competition based off of full free market principles, because they have to do these things in the shadows. If we opened up all of the markets, violence would go away. The cartel wouldn't have a leg to stand on whenever it comes to this, because they wouldn't have any underlying threat of violence against them to begin with. And that's what happened immediately after we re-legalized alcohol again. All of the violence that was associated with it went away, because free markets are peaceful and they can resolve things and innovate properly. And also, you don't have the government poisoning you as well. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, Dan, to you. Has the war on drugs caused more harm than the drugs themselves?
Did somebody steal my lighter? Has the war on drugs caused more? Yeah, of course. I mean, a joint has never locked me up and put handcuffs on me and told me that I owe money to the government, but a police officer has. No, it's not true. I never got caught. Yeah, no, that's a silly question. I mean, how many people have died from smoking weed? There was that one. Okay, there's this one statistic about like number of people that marijuana has ever killed, and there was that one guy where like 8 tons of cannabis fell on top of him while he was unloading a truck, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, even like, I mean, look, nobody's out there saying like, hey man, you know where we can get some fentanyl? Like, no, that doesn't happen, right? That's in there because the government's either importing the stuff and fucking with us, or because it's a black market and people have to buy it from irreputable people. So like, yeah, it's the whole thing is stupid. But this one's even crazier. This is the craziest thing about the whole thing. So I've been told by DARE officers who tell me that, you know, if you ever see your parents smoking weed at home, you should report them to the cops. Yeah, they actually said that. So these DARE officers like to don't ever try heroin once or you're going to die. You're going to get addicted and you're going to overdose. One hit, that's all it takes. What's interesting is the study that everybody uses to say how addictive heroin is was based on these rats who were in these cages and they were given 2 bottles of water. One had heroin, one didn't. And what's interesting is this was done in the 70s. And shortly after the experiment was done, somebody looked at the study and said, well, you know, you're putting these rats in a cage by themselves. They're probably freaking bored out of their minds, right? Why don't you put them in an amusement park with lots of other rats where they can have fun and socialize and do all this other stuff, and then give them the 2 choices of water with and without heroin. Nobody took the heroin. They tried it to know it was there, and they were like, oh, this is gross. I don't like this, right? and they weren't addicted to heroin. So actually the whole thing about addiction to heroin is based on depression and social pressure and all this other stuff, which is like social pressure. Where does that come? Oh, taxes. I'm fucking depressed. I can't pay my bills. My cost of living is too high. Thanks, government. So all these other things are contributing to addiction rates and everything else, where people are like, I just can't live this life. I need to do drugs. And so it's much bigger than just the whole war on drugs thing. It's like everything that the government does is forcing us into this. And then what happens when you get caught, right? They're like, oh, you need to be a productive member of society. Why don't you get a job and pay your taxes, and we'll go easy on you? Like, so think about it. We went from a country that used to have slaves to run the factories and the plantations to a country that basically says, oh, you're a drug user. You are the lowest rungs of society. We're going to force you into labor. And if you don't do that, we're going to send you to jail, where we're going to force you to labor even harder for like 2 cents an hour. So yeah, it's absolute nonsense. Anyone who buys any of this is I'm sorry. No, I don't want to call you stupid, because you're not stupid. You're just bamboozled. You've got the blinders over your eyes and you don't see this thing for what it really is. You are being controlled. Politicians do not give two shits about you. They don't care about your health. They don't care if you die and overdose on something else. All they care about is if you are productive and contribute to all the bullshit that they want to build to support their war machine so they can go and invade other countries around the world. That's all this is about. That's all they care about. They don't care about you. They don't care if you're happy.
All right. Jacob, back to you. The category is limiting federal policing. Has federal policing expanded beyond its intended purpose?
Yeah, it's a good question for someone who I've heard different constitutional scholars talk about like the scope to which the federal government could have, like what their jurisdiction was on policing, on immigration, on, various matters, to what degree they were inherently given a right to even interfere in interstate commerce from the get-go. But again, not to be a meme at this point, but I just think that the minute we decided that we were going to create a giant federal government that could even conceivably come up with a giant police force, like I don't know, I'm not a constitutionalist expert, but I'd have to think that a good constitutionalist would argue that a giant like federal policing force would be at least against the intent of sort of the American Revolution. Like they fought not half the reason, but at least a big part of the reason. Like one of the major grievances they had against the British government was that there was a standing army there, that they had to quarter those troops at some point. So, I feel like if you're going to have we put it this way. I think that there is a misconception about libertarians and anarchists that we don't want certain things to exist. But that's not true. I want healthcare for people. I want health insurance for people. I want there to be roads. I want there to be schools, or at least, people have the option to homeschool as well, but there can still be, private schools and whatnot. A lot of the things about modern society, I don't object to them existing. And that includes the idea of protection agencies, or if you wanted to call them police, that's fine. It's just when you try to fund those things through taxation, that's a big problem. And two, when they are enforcing laws created from this centralized monopoly that are unjust, and then because they're not a private agency, but they're like swearing an oath to basically enforce these laws no matter what. This is why we as libertarians often default to the position of saying there's no good cops, because if you were a good person, you decide to, because you're naive or misunderstood, to put yourself in the position of being in law enforcement, whether that's at the state level or the federal level or local level, the minute you're asked to enforce a law that is unjust, the minute you are asked to initiate force against an innocent person, someone who's not acting violently, who's not a threat to others, you should immediately resign. You should immediately resign, or at least like refuse to do your job and be fired or something like that, right? But the vast majority don't do that. And that's the problem with federal police, is that for it to continue to exist, they're going to have to end up being called upon to enforce laws at the federal level that are not just unconstitutional, but that are just fundamentally immoral. Don't sign away your conscience. Don't sign away your conscience to the beast. Keep your conscience. Don't compromise yourself. And listen, I'll just say this: there's a few people in the chat who have been rightfully calling me out for even myself deviating from that principle. I didn't join the police force, but I did vote for Trump, and that was me compromising on my principles. We're all imperfect. I like how Dan corrected himself in the last answer and said that he went to go call people stupid and said, no, you've been bamboozled. We've all at different points in our life been bamboozled. And that doesn't mean that we should not be held accountable for our mistakes and that we shouldn't admit our mistakes and learn from them. I know people who have served in the military, who have served in law enforcement, and while they were in those positions, did terrible things. And that doesn't mean that now you have to go away forever. That actually means that you have a powerful testimony to share about how you made a mistake and you've learned from it, and you can try to steer other people from making the same mistake or believing in the same lie that you did.
All right. Derek, to you. Should federal law enforcement powers be reduced in favor of state and local control?
Well, if I may quote a great man who would have just celebrated his 100th birthday, why leave it to state and local levels and not to towns, counties, or wards? You know, being able to have that as localized as you can get is what's important. And there is no way to fully decentralize something unless you can decentralize it down to the individual level, because that's ultimately what matters. People should have the right to have the say over their own life. So
love it. All right, here we go again. Oh boy. The Mad Hatter, the questions to you. Should the FBI's jurisdiction be narrowed significantly?
It should be so narrow that you could not see it if it was redacted in the Epstein files with a big black marker. No, wait, that would mean that you couldn't see it anyways. Yeah, of course. The FBI should be abolished. This is a bullshit agency that was created basically to give the federal government, police powers that they didn't really have before, especially not within the United States, because their executive power was, well, they had the president and some other shit, but mostly, I lost my little friend there, mostly regulatory and international war related, right? Or revenue collection. The FBI was like, hey, you don't have enough cops in your neighborhood. Let's send some feds down there too. And then they started like taking over like all these crimes that should be controlled at the state level. This was interesting. People don't know this about the Kennedy assassination. Can I say that word, or are we getting censored? The Kennedy unaliving was that this was supposed to go to state jurisdiction, and the state the county sheriff in Dallas was supposed to basically take over the investigation and do the autopsy and everything else. Then the feds came in and said, oh, no, this is a federal matter because it's a federal presidential thing, and we're going to take all the evidence. And then of course they disassembled it and everything else. But they took over the whole operation. That's the whole reason we didn't know what happened to Kennedy until 50 years later when they released some files. And I don't think anyone still really knows what's going on. I mean, we still kind of we have more info than we did before. But yeah, anyways, thanks to the feds. So all they do is they basically say, oh, we'll take care of this. And then they never tell us anything. And it's the same thing that happened with Epstein, right? Oh no, Epstein, this is too big of a case for local law enforcement to handle. We'll take care of this. We'll take really good care of this. And so all these victims who are coming out, oh yeah, don't go to your local police, go to the FBI, and we will take all your complaints against Epstein and all these politicians, federal politicians that have harmed you and sexually, SA'd you, I know I already fucked it up because I said the word and then I said the F-bomb. But so like then they're like, oh yeah, we have all this information, but there's nothing good in there. And then Thomas Massey's like, the hell there isn't. Show us the papers. And then they're like, okay, we'll show you the papers. And then they're all blacked out. This is what the feds do. And the FBI is basically just the law enforcement branch of this entire federal bullshit machine. So reduce their scope or size. I don't know. I mean, is getting rid of them completely considered a reduction? I'd just say get rid of them. Fuck them. In Minecraft.
If anybody can still hear us after that rant, we're still live, I think. But yeah, thanks for using all the words in one answer. Literally all of the words. I don't know if you have a clipboard or something.
Get deeper into this blast. The filter is I don't even know what the word is for that. It's solulating.
The only word you don't know is that word. That's
water solulating the filter. Yeah.
And it was the Kennedy regime change is what it was.
Oh yes, the regime change.
Yeah.
They had to install the Shah. The American Shah.
Jacob, to you, categories free movement. Should private sponsorship replace federal immigration control?
So private sponsorship's an idea that I know Hoppe promoted, other libertarians as well. And if we're talking about sort of like policy proposals we can present to people who are not quite ready to kind of like jump into the deep end of, full-blown voluntarism, anarcho-capitalism, complete embrace of the free market and the free movement of people. Yeah, again, this is one of those things where on a sliding scale, it would be better and it would be a closer approximation to the way a free society works to say that the movement of people is not sort of arbitrarily decided upon by the federal government, just sort of saying, only this many people can come in and only if they, fill out these proper papers that get approved by a bunch of bureaucrats. But if you put that in the hands of private sponsors, which could be churches, charities, family members, businesses that want to hire people, that would be better, right? I think that could get that would certainly be better compared to like what we're seeing going on with like the Trump administration and having federal agents in cities and just like going into apartment buildings and just grabbing people. Like, to be fair, a private sponsorship system though is still going to lead to some of that. And so it's one of those things where I, like a lot of these questions, I'm trying to demonstrate to people that we can sort of say, yes, this is a step in the right direction, but even something like a private sponsorship or Hoppian model is going to come with infringement on personal liberty. And I'm okay with us talking about sort of like practical incremental solutions as long as we don't do that at the expense of not talking about how those are still like not far enough. Like we should never settle in terms of like our aspirational goals, our voices, especially those of us who are doing, like, if I was a Thomas Massey or a Rand Paul or someone who's actually trying to get legislation passed, that's maybe playing a different role. But I think us as like podcasters, as influencers, I think we can acknowledge that some of these policies are better, but we should always be just bringing things back to the kind of root level of just asking people like, yeah, maybe this policy is better than that policy, but also like, why does the government have a right to say it should be this policy or that policy in the first place? Moving anywhere in the world, just moving from point A to point B, unless you're trespassing on a individual person's private property, is never aggression. And government should never be involved in that in the first place.
All right. Derek, to you. Should peaceful individuals be free to cross borders for work?
Peaceful individuals, are they free individuals or are they slaves? Because that's kind of important here. Because the question seems to at least assume that such a restriction is valid. But yes, absolutely. People have the right, free people have the right to go where they please. The only places that they cannot go are beyond the borders of private property lines without the consent of the owner of that property. To have this idea that that a nation's border is somehow valid because we are all one collective unit violates individualism at its very core. And so if people are not allowed to travel where they are invited and where they are willing to go, whether that's to cross the street or across the town or across the country, they have the right to do that. And there's nothing on this planet that is legitimate to deny that.
Right. Last question of the night to you, Dan, and last wardrobe change in your case. Would freer migration strengthen the economy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know like people are afraid of it, right? Because there's always propaganda. This is what's interesting. Everybody hates immigration if it threatens them, but they love immigration if it's in their favor, right? So let's use the voting example. Conservatives hate immigration because they're told that all of these immigrants are going to come in and vote Democrat and they're going to lose the next election. But now ask them, should all of the Israelis be able to immigrate to the United States? Sure. Does it matter if they're taking jobs? No, it doesn't matter. That's not even the question. It's people we like. They're coming here, so we'll allow them to come here. That's the whole question of oh, well, you can buy your citizenship. You can buy your way in, right? It's the same. Oh, these are people who have money. They're not going to take our jobs because they already have money. It's this like stupid rationalization, but the way our brains work is we accept anything that's in our favor and then we try to rationalize it later. So is it good for the economy? I mean, look, if you live in a small town and there's a big city right next to you, and that city, like they have a big rave one night and next day everyone's pregnant and the population's going to double, and in 18 years from now you have an entire double population with a massive workforce that's going to come and take your country farm job, is that a threat to your job? Economically, like, sure, yeah, of course it is, but that's not the problem, right? It's only when those extra people come from across an imaginary line that your government told you, or politicians, or all these like crazy people told you, oh, those people are bad because they come from the other side of that line, and this is what they're going to do to you. No, they're not bad. You don't hate them because they're bad. You hate them because, oh, they might steal the election in a different way. Some people actually like abortion because it eliminates certain people who would grow up in certain neighborhoods and become members of certain parties. Some people are pro or against abortion because of those reasons. It's like, sure, there's all kinds of like moral arguments you could have for and against it. But the reason, and they make these arguments all the time. It's the same. We're dealing with war, right? It's the same thing. Oh, they've been attacked. That's not why you're at war with Iran. That's why you're telling us you're going to war with Iran. You're at war with Iran because you have your personal agenda. You're trying to tell Bibi that, like, oh yeah, I'm cool. I'm part of the cool club, right? Yeah, or you're trying to distract us from your Epstein files and other. It's always something stupid. So sure, are things going to happen that are bad for economics? Sure, the computer was invented. That was really bad for the typewriter industry. That was really bad for the accounting industry. Think about how many accountants lost their jobs because computers could calculate all these taxes so much faster. Amazing, right? So like there are always threats to economics, but the biggest threat to economics is taxes, because at the end of the day, you are in debt. Think about this. The people who were not affected when the entire world shut down for COVID were the people who owned land and had no debt, or at least had no debt that the bank could come and take their land out from under their feet, or owed no taxes that the government couldn't come and take everything away from them. Those were the people who were completely unaffected. But the reality is people in the United States today have something like the average household has something to the tune of $180,000 in debt. A lot of that's mortgage debt, and college debt and all this other stuff, and tax debt. because you have to pay your taxes before you pay your mortgage. And so that makes it harder for you to pay off your mortgage. So all these taxes are piled on top, forcing everyone in America into debt. That is the biggest threat to you economically. It's not some people who want to cross the border and work for less than minimum wage. It is not them. It is you, and the fact that you're in a position where not even that you owe money to a bank. You can have credit cards. You could borrow $100,000 in credit cards from a bank and they can't do anything. But when the land under your feet is owed to the bank or it's owed to the government because of property taxes, that's where your problem is. That's the biggest problem. The world can shut down and you have to hand everything over to the bank or the government. You're screwed. That has nothing to do with immigration. Immigration is just like, that's little sprinkles that they're putting on the cupcake. That's nothing. That's small potatoes. That's absolutely nothing. Worry about the government and how they're robbing you.
All right. That is our last question of the night. So jump into the chat one last time. Tell us who you thought won. Tell us what you thought of the show. Share it out one more time to make sure people get to see all these great answers. And I'm going to be reading a lot here real quick. Points to Jacob for taking the lead. Points to Jacob for rejecting the government. Points to Jacob. The government has no say in what I put in me. That might have come out wrong. Points to Jacob for not pearl clutching. Points to Jacob sharing Ron Paul wisdom. Points to Jacob for rejecting Big Daddy government and his nanny. Points to Jacob. Government should have no say. Points to Jacob. Republicans are the worst about personal responsibility. Points to Jacob for the Ron Paul heroin reference. Points to Jacob, personal responsibility, no nanny state. Points to Derek, free market principles. Points to Dan, his fashion statements tonight on the catwalk. Points to Derek for understanding how black markets work. -50 to Marcus for never sending me that card. Points to Derek, war on drugs created the cartel problem and increased violent crime. Points to Derek, you should be able to buy Pepsi brand or Coke brand heroin. Points to Derek for not letting the government poison us. Points to Dan. Points to Dan. Points to Derek, free markets are peaceful and innovative. Minus to Dan for dissing my questions. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Points to Dan, props for props. I like that. Minus to Dan, I'm trying to get some Fenty. Another minus to Dan for talking to dare officers. 150 to Derek for looking like AI from Tool Time, or Al from Tool Time. I read that as AI. Points to Dan for black market and government arrest causing more harm. Points to Derek, I think he's my agorist brother from another mother. Points to Dan for sending rats to an amusement park. Points to Dan, you had me at black markets and parallel systems. Minus to Dan, he didn't put on the big hat. Excuse me. +50 for saying police bigger threat than drugs. Points to Dan for driving the point home. People would not necessarily choose drugs. In fact, they contribute to addiction. Dan said bamboozled, but can free read bamboozled. Points to Dan. But 78 back to Dan for saying bamboozled, and an additional 18 for acknowledging a lot of these people aren't stupid. They're just buying nonsense. They want to believe. They want to believe in something in this crazy, crazy time. Points to Dan, preach it, long answer, nailed it. Points to Jacob for wanting us to have roads. Terry is scary with the screenshots. Points to Jacob for wanting schools. Points to Dan for lightning round answer that was 5 minutes long. I'll take the over on that. Points to Jacob, lightning round answer that's 4 minutes long. I'll also take the over on that. Points to Jacob, do not sell out the system ever. Do not let culture wars separate you from
Amen.
allies and liberty. Points to Jacob for being focused on ethics. Is this lightning round? I thought it was Thunderbolt 3. I'm going to have to rename it. I think we've ruined the lightning round. Points to Jacob, heartfelt response. Points to Derek for, wait for it, he will say it in another profound statement. Points to Jacob, no good cop. Points to Derek for Murray's B-Day. Yeah, happy heavenly birthday to Rothbard. Points to Derek, decentralized to the individual level, based as hell. Points to Derek, individual level. Points to Derek because he has a great smile. Oh, that's cute. Points to Derek, decentralized to the individual level. Points to Dan for the big yellow hat. Points to Dan, abolish the FBI 2. Points to Dan, he's a hoot with a hat, also wise. Points to Jacob so he can finally get his first win, hopefully. But like the other 2 contestants too, anarchy forever. Amen to that. Dan's porcupine just committed suicide or unalived itself, I think we're supposed to say. We shall remember him fondly.
We've said all the words tonight.
Yeah, we really did. Minus to Dan for losing his filter. Points to Derek. Spooner told me to award them from his grave. I see dead people in taxes. M. Night. Shyamalanga Ding Dong. Points to Jacob for personal liberty. Points to Jacob for the Massey answer. Points to Jacob for citing Hoppy. 200 Derek for getting to the heart of the free movement question. Are you free or are you a slave? I think it might be the latter. Points to Derek. The idea nations inherently violate individual rights and sovereignty. Points to Derek. Individual rights. Minus to Dan for removing the hat. I think some of this might have backfired. Points to Jake because he deserves his first win. Excellent answers tonight. Points to Jacob for trying to be principled, but not against incremental improvement. Yeah, I like that too. Points to Dan, free immigration, not just people you like or will vote your way. Points to Jacob for anarcho-Christian hoodie, the OG. That's a good hoodie. Points to Dan, I better get invited to this rave. Points to Dan, there's no special dirt that gives people more rights. Points to Jacob for being a model of how to have voted wrong and working to rectify it, based as hell. Points to Jacob for the Scott Horton books. Points to Jake, or can Jacob come back from last? Can Dan survive being nuked? Can Derek take the upset and get the ninja win? I don't know. Just typing long comment to make me read. I see you. Points to Terry for starting it. Minus to Dan for the 20-minute final answer. I have to. Yeah, I'm hungry. Points to Derek. He's our ninja and cap warrior. Points to Dan. Biggest threat to economics is taxes. Minus 91 for running us out of time. 20 for Jacob and Derek for not leaving mid-rant. Points to Derek. Worry about the government, how they're robbing you. From Dan. Great show. Great. 3 great friends. Awesome, guys. Great show, everyone. This was awesome. And show was awesome. Whole squad of ANCAPs. It was fun. Let's see where we ended up here. I'm not even going to look for the drum roll. Here we go. And Jacob with the win, 86-86, 100 and something ahead of Dan. And it was tight. Derek was right in there too. Derek, 3rd place tonight. What did you think, man?
I came here to have fun, and that's exactly what I did. Win, lose, or draw. I had a great time.
Awesome. Plug your stuff, please.
You can find me on X. That's where I spend most of my time. Usually, pointing out why people are wrong. I'm also, I also have a Nostra account. If you want to follow me on any of those clients, you can find my post somewhere on X for my key. And yeah, you can find some of the things that I've written on the torch.media.
Excellent. And like Derek said, he is at ANCAP Air on X. Check out Torch Media. We love their stuff. And we got to have you back out when the new book comes out. The previous book is The Liberty Solution. The new book is Chaos in Auburn. Appreciate you, man. You are one of the best. And I love that you're out there fighting every single day. And 2nd place was to Dan. What did you think?
I'm 1st place in my own mind. I had awesome fun tonight, and I don't care who says otherwise. Yeah, I mean, I literally had nothing better to do. No, I'm kidding. I would have turned down dinner with Thomas Massey for this. No, but I had a great fucking time. I don't care what the score says. I came in less than 2nd place on Call of Duty while I was warming up for this. And by warming up, I mean drinking this. So like I'm happy in 2nd place.
Awesome. Plug your stuff too, please.
All right. So, well, filter. Okay. So I got 2 books, Taxation is Theft, How Politicians Rob You Blind. And I have an awesome book, This one just came out. I'm going to knock everything over. Crash the Fed. The only way to end it, because like stop waiting for politicians, because it's not going to happen. And I keep these on my shelf next to this really cool bookshelf holder thing that I have right here. This keeps my books like standing up right there. It's really cool. I 3D printed it. I don't know. I found this really cool design. Anyways, yeah. So I have the books and like a bunch of other stuff available on taxationistheft.info. And of course, I'm always running my mouth on TikTok and X, at Dan for Texas on X and at Dan Behrman on TikTok, which is surprisingly good reach for libertarian content for now.
Yeah, I keep getting banned from TikTok, but yeah, like you said, at Dan for Texas on X. The website is danforfreedom.com if you want to buy the books. The books are, the new one is Crash the Fed. The other book is Taxation is Theft, How Politicians Rob You Blind. Really appreciate you, man. I love your different ideas and how you contribute to the conversation, and great books. And I hope you sell a lot of them and never pay any taxes on them. So, all right. First place, first time ever, our buddy Jacob Winograd. What do you think, bud?
Oh man, it was so much fun. I mean, the ANCAP energy was popping. Even just now with Dan, I think we might have broken a record for just how many times the phrase taxation is theft was on screen. I think I counted, like at one point it was on the screen 5 times, and then he said it as he was reading the book title. So I mean, just awesome. Yeah, it's great to win, but it doesn't even matter. The scoreboard doesn't. I mean, it matters for bragging rights, but at the end of the day, I just love being part of this movement, especially this sort of audience and kind of culture you're helping to cultivate free. It's a great community of people who all want the same thing, even though we come from different backgrounds, even though we don't even in this conversation, there's little things where we disagree and whatnot, and that provides flavor. I think that models how a free society can work, because it's just every day getting up and choosing that when you run into people that are different than you, running into people that have disagreements with you, you choose peace over violence. And that is the essence of civilization. That's the essence of the good parts of Western civilization. And we're the true venerators of the Enlightenment, of the ideas that the founding fathers promoted. And America, I've been saying this a lot lately, where it's the 250th anniversary of America this year. And I hope one day that we can take those ideas of liberty that the founders promoted and just continue to work towards increasingly more getting close to a more perfect encapsulation and execution of seeing those values lived out in our society. So yeah, we're all winners tonight, because we're on the same team.
I agree. Plug your stuff.
Yeah, again, biblicalanarchypodcast.com, libertarianchristians.com. I also, it's still new for me, but I am an author now. I don't have a copy of it yet, other than advanced reader's copy, but the second edition of this book is in the works to be released later this year, probably April or May, and that'll be Faith Seeking Freedom, the second edition. First edition was about 100 questions. Second edition, we more than doubled it. We went over, I think we're at 230 or 240 questions. Great question and answer format book to give to, it's obviously targeted towards Christians, but it can give it to anyone. And it's just a great primer on just sort of the different questions that we all get as libertarians, beyond just the classic, what about the roads, things about immigration, things about property rights, things about nationalism, a lot of things we talked about tonight, and kind of giving very nice, about 200 word answers to those things. So it's good for people if you want to give it to them who want to learn more about libertarianism and sort of where libertarians come down on the various issues. It's also great for personal reading, just to kind of sharpen your own mind and your ideas, so that you can go out there and advocate for this philosophy of social cooperation and peace more effectively. So, but yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, or X as we're calling it these days, at Biblical Anarchy. And I think I've effectively plugged everything I can think to plug.
Excellent. Yeah. Follow Jacob on X at Biblical Anarchy. Also, check out the Libertarian Christian Institute. I am a donor, libertarianchristians.com. And definitely check out his show, the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, where you watch your shows. Congratulations. Excellent job tonight. And it was fun having 3 libertarian anarchist authors on here. Very cool. Let's add Terry back in. Terry, what'd you think tonight?
Are you kidding? I mean, this was a great show. You guys really did make me look good, and I appreciate every one of you. You have no idea how much. And the chat, my gosh, they fell in love. I think if you guys aren't following all 3 of these guys, then I highly recommend that you do it. I appreciate all 3 of you. Thanks very much.
What do we got coming up?
Okay, here we go. Terry's going to try to read the teleprompter tonight. On Friday, March the 6th, we're starting an hour early at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the 3-hour You Are the Power extravaganza and fundraiser with the man of the hours, Spike Cohen, taking on a lineup of Liberty challengers. Jeff Charles Jr., journalist and news editor. Donnie the Misfit, constitutionalist extravaganza. Lou Perez, comedian and author. Adam Johnson, the J6 lectern guy. Chef Andrew Gruel, celebrity chef and city council member at Huntington Beach, California. And he's running again right now. Topher Field, he's an Australian political reporter. Martha Bueno, she's an entrepreneur and a homesteader who loves her fresh milk. Simon Winch and Amos Denton from the Appalachian Podcast. Larry Sharp, activist and podcast host running for governor of New York. Dwayne Lester, talk show radio host. Nick Nemeth, TNA professional wrestler, previously known and wrestled in WWE, and he's the champion under Dolph Ziggler. Libertarian Lars Mapstead, tech entrepreneur, and currently running for U.S. representative in California. The one and only Justin Amash, American attorney, and the first Libertarian Party member to serve in Congress, which started in 2019, and I made it.
All right. Excellent. And share this out again if you don't mind. See if you can increase the reach of these great ideas. And I am at Smarter Game Show on X. Terry is Bats T76, Amity Lee 13, American versus Gov for Casey. And yeah, we have that great lineup. That's Friday, March 6th, 7 p.m. It'll be a blast. And we're doing the Libertarian conventions this month, North Carolina, then Texas next month, maybe Colorado, and then the national convention in May. And thank you again to Zoom for sponsoring us. They have all their goods at xumtrip.com. Our gear is at freedomsuperstore.com. And I didn't need to show that. And thanks again to all of our subscribers. You make this possible. We're hemorrhaging money at this point with all the travel, so we really appreciate you. And if you want to sponsor us, email studio@freedomuncut.com. Chat was awesome tonight. Really appreciate you guys. We're having reach problems on X, so everything you're doing is amazing. And we will see you Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, an hour earlier than usual. It's going to be a blast. Hopefully we'll raise a lot of money for the amazing organization You Are the Power. And we hope to see y'all then. Peace, y'all.